All right. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Page County School Board.
Mr. Overfelt.
Yes.
Ms. Boucher? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Bryant? Yes. Sullivan?
Yes. Yes. Please pause for a minute of silence as we prepare for the meeting tonight. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Fox, do you have any agenda changes or additions?
I do not.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
A second. A motion by Mr. Overfelt and a second by Ms. Sullivan Smith to approve the agenda as presented.
Ms. Boucher? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Mr. Overfelt?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes. Yes.
Madam Chairman, I would like to certify that all personal matters discussed in closed session, and we're in section 2.2-3711A1A.
Second.
There's a motion by Ms. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Ms. Alger to certify personnel matters discussed in closed session.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Mr. Overfelt?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Any citizen comment? No.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Overfelt and a second by Ms. Sullivan Smoot to approve the consent agenda.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Mr. Overfelt?
Yes.
Ms. Alger? Abstain. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes. The June minutes are posted for review. Anybody care to look at them? Monthly financials, Ms. Seacrest?
Yes, good evening, board members. You have been provided with the monthly financials for June of 2024, ending the fiscal year, that we had expenditures and revenue of $524,921.47. That was so large due to the expenditures of spend down of our ESSER funding. We did balance with the treasurer for last month and the year. If you have any questions, I do my best to answer.
Said you balanced for the year,
Last year.
for last year?
Yes, sir.
Fiscal year.
Yes. We have to balance the last month, every month, and then we have to balance for the year. And then all of that will go, of course, to the auditors for their work to provide us with our end of the year fund balance. And
Okay.
all of those doing that accrual work from some things that we still receive in July and August that get paid back for FY24 and
Right.
those kind of things.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Ms. Seacrest.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnson, Crisis Management Plan?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, I bring before you the school crisis and emergency plan. The version that I posted is new in that it's parent version. We have and it aligns very, very closely with the staff version that is confidential. In the staff version, we have phone numbers, access points, security evacuation strategies, security teams by school, and a lot of that is held confidential, obviously, for the safety and well-being of our facilities and our students and staff, should we encounter an emergency. What I wanted to do tonight was take you through the parent version, and at the same time, I can allude to what is in the division version that is not public, because some of this I post in here, and instead of the staff version, there are hyperlinks. So as I go through, I'll be able to say, in the staff version, this is a hyperlink, and this is what the principal, the assistant principal, the staff would see. It's not public. But we were questioned this year, the reason the parent version, we had a situation, and there were a lot of questions afterwards by a parent, and I was back and forth over some time with the parent. And they asked really good questions, things that they said, well, why can't we know that? Why can't we know the language when we go on a lockdown? How do I know when it's a fight in a given hallway and we've just locked down a section of the building because students are not behaving, and as opposed to we've got the whole building locked down? And so we tweaked the language, and we've done some things in this parent version that I would like to see posted on the website, distributed by principals at parent nights and so on, because I think there were valid questions, and I think there are things parents that are in the staff version that absolutely the parents could see, and we've always kind of held it as one document. So I hope that makes sense. I'll walk you through it. I'm happy to take questions, and I'll allude to the staff version while we do so, if that's okay. So what you're looking at is the parent version, and if you could just scroll down, I will. It opens up, and I'm going to follow along with the staff version because they're very similar. But it opens up with a very clear statement about why we have this, what the purpose of this is. We have a safety committee. We meet regularly with law enforcement monthly. We have members of all 3 town police departments. The chiefs meet with us, the sheriff and his staff, the emergency services coordinator. So the staff version is a live document, and we're constantly talking about response, how to respond. We have definitions in there. And so I just want to kind of go through this. We'll skip the index here because it takes us through all of these components. And you can see in the introduction for what we try to do for the parents is just kind of talk about the goal of it. What are we trying to accomplish anytime before an emergency? Should we have an emergency? What are we trying to accomplish? And I won't read this word for word, obviously. This is posted. You all can look through this. The definition, we talk about a school crisis. If you scroll down just a bit, please. And we also talk about medical emergencies. And so we try to explain to parents, what are we talking about when we use certain language? There's certain language that's going to generate a very quick and sudden response from emergency services. And then there are emergencies that are medical emergencies that perhaps we handle in-house with our nursing staff. Perhaps we need to call a squad. Perhaps sometimes we have to go into a lockdown on a hallway because of the significance of it. Maybe someone's having a seizure in public in the hallway, and so we need to keep the classrooms closed for a while until it's resolved. So all of this we try to explain in the parent version. What is a critical incident? What's a medical incident? All of this is as I look at the staff one, all of this is driven by Code of Virginia. So Code of Virginia requires school divisions to have these in place. The parent version is just an extension of that. We are required to take specific steps. We survey students and staff throughout the year. How are they feeling about safety? There's both climate and safety surveys that we review. We fold back into these response plans. We have principals this summer. There's a state checklist. They walk and check their building inside and out. They give me information on how's your lighting in your parking lot. Has your shrubbery been cut back? You think about people hiding behind shrubs or climbing trees. What is the state of your camera systems? Extensive checklist that the principals go through. They send that to me. We actually house that in the staff plan as hyperlinks, so it remains a live document throughout the year. We review it. We share it with our maintenance team. If there are things we need to address, fixes that need to occur on a given campus, we try to take care of that. So that's an example of something we wouldn't share on the parent side. We wouldn't share the results of the building or the facility checklist, because sometimes, again, that yields information about a campus that perhaps we wouldn't want to let out to the public. The specific maps that we use, CRG maps, you might remember a couple of years ago, we got a grant fund for those. those show where electric cutoffs are, gas cutoffs are, a lot of the information that we need, staff need, sheriff's office needs, but again, some of that we just don't make public out of safety. You could keep going. Articulation of responsibilities. In the staff division, all of these are hyperlinked because we have very specific responsibilities when we mobilize for a crisis. And we've had some. And who's setting up the command center here? Who's en route to a given evacuation point to make sure doors are unlocked and that place is ready to receive students? What's transportation doing in regards to getting bus drivers on buses in case we need to move kids from one building to another? So on the parent side, we want parents to know, we think through it, we're prepared, we're ready, but again, some of the information that goes along with the specifics we're not going to share. School plans, if you can keep going there. This gets into school crisis teams. On the staff side, it's all a live document, and it specifies everything from who's got the medical kit in the nurse's office, who's thinking about, is there a student on the third floor that's on crutches, and we need to be thinking about how we're going to get them down, depending on the crisis. Who's dealing with the specifics of attendance. These school crisis teams are very, very specific, and they name people. And so that remains live. So it's a Google Doc format. So if a teacher leaves, the principal can reassign that duty. Dr. Fox and I, in the middle of a situation, aren't scratching our heads wondering, oh, wonder what happened there. Is, that person's no longer works for us. So we're very specific about school crisis teams and what goes on there. If you can keep going. You can kind of see there a lot of bulleted information on who does what. And then the articulation of responsibilities, a little bit more about some of those duties I just touched upon is very specific. When you get down there to the audit plans, what we begin to have are on the staff side, the Virginia School Safety Audit. That is a required safety audit. We just submitted ours last week. It was due today, 31st. And that is a culmination of the surveys that the principals have done, the surveys that teachers and students do throughout the year to the DOE. They're anonymous, so we like to believe that we're getting some pretty credible, authentic information. We get a summary, we visit that information, we meet with principals, we look at their checklists of the facility, and then we go back and we complete the audit survey. The audit survey is more from your data, what do you need? So it's how the DOE then comes back to us and says, okay, your staff told us that mental health is a big concern, but they also told us that maybe they don't have certain things. And so this is a chance for us to go back and respond to the DOE. And they ask a lot of specific questions in that survey, and then we're able to submit. And it's just a fluid, ongoing communication between the state and us on what our needs are. The checklist I mentioned, the live spot active shooter response training. We have a lot of training that we do with staff. You might recall the apps that we use that all staff can activate should there be an active shooter situation. We have videos, we have little snapshot on how to do certain things with the app. It's all hyperlinked to the staff version, so they can access that anytime, and we can take them back through that. And then if you go back up just quickly, the CRG, the CRG is the critical response group. Those are the mapping systems that we have. They're quadrant-based. They have a military history. So if law enforcement shows up at a building, they could say it's in class. It doesn't do any good to say it's in classroom 25 to a police officer who may not know the building. But they've got the CRG maps, and you can say it's in quadrant C3. And they're looking at it and they know exactly where they're going. So those are very valuable, and those are all hyperlinked in the staff version as well. Communication procedures, you can see there that we've tried to let the parents know, what do we have, how do we handle different modes of communication during a crisis event. If you keep going, external communications, that deals with, hold on, external. Thank you. That deals with what we're putting out, if we're going to put communications out to the media, or what communication we're having back and forth with law enforcement. And that all runs through Dr. Fox first and foremost, unless she's not available. And then it would be myself and Dr. Huber. So we've got that all spelled out. And then the parent piece, if you keep going, we try to give the parents some helpful information on how we handle some of these, how we handle our website, how we communicate. Keep going, if you would. I'm trying to give you a little bit of a quicker version. This is a helpful section. If you see the section, what parents need to do and know, we just ask parents, please don't rush to the school. Please don't start texting your child. If they're in a lockdown situation, we're asking the kids not to have their phones on. There's another whole discussion coming your way about cell phones and the policy this year. But this reemphasizes as well what helps or hurts in a crisis situation. So there's a lot of bullets here on just reminders for parents on what to be thinking about when we say we've gone on lockdown, or we've had something happen in the community around a certain school. If you keep going, emergency response. This is language that I thought was really important for parents that we have not had before. So this part is new. And what it is, this is a well-placed question by a parent to me. We had a situation where one hallway was locked down. The whole school was not. It was one hallway. There was something going on in the hall, student behavior related, and it was young children. And so the principal made the decision to say, okay, we're going to keep kids in their classroom until the situation is resolved. It's pretty volatile. But that didn't mean the whole school stopped. Other hallways, they were moving about their business, very local to one hallway. But the parents didn't know that. They didn't know, had we locked the school down? Was there an intruder outside? It wasn't any of the above. It was a situation with student conduct that staff were dealing with. And so what we've done now is we've categorized low, medium, and high threat. And we've put language in there in which we're asking principals to use. So you can see the low threat would say remain indoors and secure entrances. This is if a principal's on the PA. All persons outside are returned to the building immediately. Exterior doors are to be locked and monitored, and continue normal operations. So an example might be, we have this, an example might be that the police might have seen some behavior in a nearby street. And sometimes they respond to that. And they always come and let us know. And we make sure then we get PE classes inside, make sure our doors are locked. But then we continue about our business. So that's different than if you go to a medium level threat. And this is where we're saying we want you to stay in place, clear the hallways and bathrooms, return to class, lock doors, but continue working. Again, that's going to tell the teacher this is not an active shooter threat or something of that nature. This is a disruption in the building, and we want the kids to stay inside the classroom. But you can continue teaching. It's okay. And of course, then a high-level threat would be just the opposite. This is going to be a lockdown. This is going to be follow our protocols for Alice, our active shooter protocols, keep kids away from the doors, barricade, those kinds of things. So we feel like that is fair for parents to be able to get that level of information. Because obviously what happens when the principal makes one of those three announcements, the very first thing kids are doing is texting. So we might as well teach a little bit about just how significant the situation is. I think it's going to reduce some calls and some visits to the school if parents understand, or it's low level. So we're going to try and do a little bit better job on how we communicate with parents. And I think this is the first step. We'll get into some of the special needs responses and so on. But, a little bit different from our staff one, which is very specific. Lots of live documents, lots of numbers, lots of protocols, but that we do keep confidential and under lock and key, other than for staff and principals.
How many incidents do we have?
Not many. That's a good question. when we talk about major incidents, you might recall, I mean, the one that we refer to quite often is the one we had, or thankfully it ended up not being a major incident. When we have a major incident where we start talking legitimate lockdown and maybe thinking about moving students, we might have one every other year or so. I can remember moving students from Luray High to Luray Middle maybe 4 or 5 years ago, so not often. But it's not unusual to lock a hallway down. I can remember a staff member having a seizure in the hallway. But we didn't want kids out in the hall going, and the protocols, procedures. Right, so that's an example. Sometimes we'll have a volatile student. The high school, unfortunately, maybe we have a fight. We hope not, but it happens. If that happens, we don't want all the kids in the hallway. So that's an example of when we do that.
So most of this are students.
Yeah, they're more,
Outside,
correct. Yeah, correct.
Or situations that, are unfortunate, like I think Shenandoah, the town was testing water pipes and some of that smoke came up.
Right.
Yeah, so we did
Yeah.
have to evacuate the building.
Or the
and
gentleman
everything
who
was
walked in with a
fine.
long knife.
Yeah, so we let parents know, kids have been evacuated, this is why, so, those kinds of things, I think we had an issue with, there was no water once, there was a boiler issue. Those are things where we might have to initially evacuate children because of fire.
You're right. We had a boiler and smoke was blowing out of the Page Middle smokestacks a year and a half ago, maybe. And it was in the evening. We had some athletes on the campus still. But again, it was a false alarm. It was an HVAC situation, not a fire. But not very often, to answer your question.
How is this document what is this document?
So this is a document that I would like to post on our website and let parents know that, encourage parents to take a look at it because it outlines how we approach safety and security.
It's not a procedure.
No.
Procedure is it?
No, it's not a procedure. The procedure is, it's informational, yeah, it really is. And we would add to that, if parents call and say, well, there may be things I haven't thought about. And so it'll be a living, breathing, growing document. And I want parents to feel like they can call and ask, and we want to be responsive and try to give them some information.
Not to hurt more trees, we've been joking about it, but would it be something we could print and give to parents at the beginning of the year, like the welcome back packet? So that
Welcome back.
Well, we already have those, but then they can.
What we typically do, Ms. Alger, is instead of the approach of printing enough, because you're talking several thousand, what we typically do is we try to publicize it. A lot of times we'll give a handout with these are the documents or these are the informational pamphlets that we want you to have access to. And then we'll say, we can give you a hard copy if you would like one. We do that often, instead of printing so many and wasting them. Yeah.
Like an addition to the student handbook, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How often do we practice this, or do we practice it?
Yeah, we do. So in the staff version, I have a very detailed drill sheet. I just had all the principals fill it out last week. It's live. It's a spreadsheet in the staff version, and I can pull up and I can tell you tomorrow at noon, such and such a school is going to conduct this drill. And it's lockdown drills. It's tornado drills. The state mandates some of that, and some of those we're required to do on very specific dates required by the state. Others we can say we're going to do X number. We do bus evacuation drills as well. Yeah, so we have all that scripted so we all know when they're happening by school. And yeah,
I think the county's doing a drill in August of their emergency action plan.
They
Are we
are.
going to be engaged in that?
we are. So we're very involved in that.
Okay.
It's a bus accident.
Okay.
So our staff are involved, transportation, myself, Mr. Bell. We've been attending all of the preparation meetings, and it's going to simulate a significant bus accident. How would our hospital respond? How would the regional hospitals respond?
Right.
How would Air Care respond? Yeah, we've been on that from the ground up. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Got to build that muscle memory.
That's right. You got to practice it.
Right.
I will say this, we had that very unfortunate Shenandoah incident, which was as close to the real thing as you could have. And the feedback afterwards was that our staff responded really, really well and knew what to do. I mean, when you get into the real thing, there's an element of panic that you never know how that's going to go. But the feedback from law enforcement in regards to how staff responded was very good, very positive.
It's muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, absolutely.
You're up again. Human Resources and Business Operations.
Yes, this is a small component. I know it was on the agenda a couple of times tonight. So I thought what would interest you tonight from HR point of view is just where are we at as we get ready to open the doors of the school this year. And so we have 40 new hires, teachers, getting ready to hit the ground. Dr. Huber and I have been working together. We have 12 of those are going to be brought in on August the 9th. And that's step one for the instructional team. Those 12 are hires who have not yet graduated or not yet quite finished, say, an education degree. So, for instance, if you have a bachelor's degree and you're able to pass the state praxis exam, you're able to get a provisional teaching license. And in this teaching shortage, that's really good news. What that does not give you is the fundamental how to manage a classroom, how to tackle student behaviors. So Dr. Huber's team is going to come in with that group, and we're going to take a deep dive into, and August the 9th is just obviously an introductory session to that. But those folks are going to get a lot more support than just our normal mentor system. So there's a Virginia new teacher support system that we're part of, put on by JMU, and we did this last year as well, in which we take some of our best and they get paid to coach these folks who are very new, very green, if you will, and that's not a disrespectful term, just reality. So there's 12 of those that will join us on August the 9th. That's a Friday. On the 12th and 13th, we'll kick off new teacher orientation. That will be all 40. So that'll be 28 folks who are traditional hires with credentials and experience or coming right out of college, and then the 12 others. And we're going to go through 2 days of our entire new teacher orientation. And we're excited. And then we have Mrs. Pettit and Mr. Pitts at the Technical Center. They oversee our mentor program that's ongoing throughout the year. So we train veteran teachers to be mentors, and they're assigned one-to-one to these 40. And then we meet with those mentor teachers regularly and say, how's it going? How are you doing with your new hire? We equip them, and again, this is a JMU research-based mentorship program that we utilize, and we equip our mentors to be a big part of the success of our mentees, our new hires. Years ago, we used to bring the mentees in, but we found it was more of a sit and get. We'd bring them in after school for an hour. We'd talk to them about topics that were really pertinent, but they just taught the school day. They were tired. So we realized it was way better to put some emphasis on supports in the school throughout the day. So that's how we kind of prioritize that. So I thought that might be a good visit of information tonight, as that's right around the corner.
Especially since Shenandoah's got a 54 teacher shortage.
We were talking the other evening, the four of us, and yeah, we saw that article. There are 50 staff vacancies. I don't know how many of those are teaching vacancies. I took a call today from another division that was hoping to lure one of our people, to which we worked that out as a at this point. But yeah, we have some neighbors that have got a lot of vacancies. We're feeling very positive. We've got a plan. We've got people covering classes. Those that don't quite have their degrees yet go on a TPOTA contract. It's lesser money, but a pathway of classes and training to get a license. And we're very fortunate when I look around us.
Great.
Dr. Huber, instructional update? And welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. This evening for the instructional update, we thought it would be timely and pertinent to provide a high-level overview of the changes that are coming to the state of Virginia in terms of accreditation and accountability. So I'll preface this presentation with that. It is very high level because there is much still to be determined and clarified by the DOE. But we wanted to give you and the public an update on what we know is going to happen, the questions we still have, and our timeline moving forward. So just an overview of some of the topics we felt were pertinent for this discussion. Again, looking at the timeline of how this has all unfolded, presenting the new terminology that's going to be used. It's very different than what we are used to in terms of even the concept of accreditation. That whole term is really going away to now be referenced as the School Performance and Support Network. So what you're used to hearing about accreditation and accountability is going to change. We'll talk about these ideas of growth, mastery, readiness, changes to how our EL students are calculated in our accountability measures, graduation and completion, which we know is a very important and critical topic, readiness and ready for life factors, which are also being calculated as part of these new measures, and then next steps, and certainly questions along the way or at the end, whatever your preference. So just briefly, it's really important to understand the timeline of how this has unfolded. This discussion began really at the Board of Ed state level back in October of 2023, where this whole concept of revamping the accreditation and accountability model came to light, and trying to almost match our state model to the federal model is really the intent behind this. In just this past month, in July of 24, Board of Ed, which you may have seen in the news, approved revised accreditation and accountability standards. While that is being said, that does not mean every little detail has been ironed out, and we're still awaiting guidance from DOE on that. The first year of data collection is actually going to be this year, this coming school year, where data will be collected to mirror and match into this new system with those full school performance and support report results coming out in 25-26. So this is another change, as I'm sure you're aware, along with some of the other changes that have come, that is coming quickly, and we will continue to update you as we get more information. So looking at the new terminology, where you may have seen in prior years the term accredited or accredited with conditions is something you're familiar with. These would be the new terminology terms that you would see schools and how they are labeled and categorized in terms of student achievement. So you have the 4 categories of distinguished, on track, off track, and intensive support. And as you work through that continuum towards the intensive support, that's the continuum where more and more kind of regulations and support would come in from the State Department to help improve the metrics that we'll talk about in just a little bit. But the definitions are there. They are still kind of broad, and how you fall into those broad categories is still yet to be fully defined. All right. So this is the item that was voted on that you may have saw in the news, and that's talking about growth, mastery, and readiness. And it's split out based upon grade bands of schools. So you can see that the way that these are weighted at the elementary, middle, and high school is very different. So whereas in years past, growth was really a factor that helped improve accreditation results, it is less of a factor in this new model. You can see at elementary schools, it's 25% of that overall rating. Middle schools, it's 20%. In high schools, it's 15%. So there's really more of a focus in this new model on mastery, on meeting those minimum benchmarks, but then also additional credit for achieving pass advanced or above those minimum expectations. So that's a shift that we have to grapple with and understand, and continue to get guidance from the state. You can see mastery in each of those categories as well. And again, it goes from 65 to 60 to 50 in the high schools. And then the readiness level is one of the more vague categories that we are looking at. And I'll talk a little bit more here in a second about that. We have, for the past few years, looked at chronic absenteeism, which you're aware, which the division has worked very hard to address, and we're very proud of that. So that will continue to be a part of the readiness component, but there are also some other things, particularly at the high school and middle school level, that look at advanced coursework, the CCCRI, graduation metrics, a lot of different pieces that go into that percentage. So we will continue to dig in on that and get more information. Please stop me if I'm going too fast.
I got a couple. Can I have
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So the advanced coursework in middle school, and one of the readiness, what happens there? What kind of classes are we talking about?
So like an Algebra 1
Okay.
would be considered advanced if a student's taking that. And more of the high school level courses that are offered at the middle school level.
all right.
Yep, good question.
Foreign language, would that be one?
Yes, yep.
We only have a handful of classes anymore at the middle level that earn you a high school credit.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, because we don't talk about that at all.
Right.
So that just.
Yep. Moving on to the English learner changes. This is a big one that I don't know if everyone was always aware that for certain English learners under the old system, their scores were excluded for up to 11 semesters. And that's dependent upon their English readiness level, which I won't get into. But under the old model, their scores on accountability measures, SOLs, were excluded for up to 11 semesters. The new system, as you heard me mention earlier, wants to align with the federal system. The federal system lowers that adjustment period to 1.5 years. So you look at 11 semesters versus a year and a half. That's a big difference and something that really needs to be accounted for as we look at our supports and instruction for our EL students. All right, moving forward, you heard me talk a little bit about this, the graduation and completion component. That's the readiness component that I had on that slide for high school. Under our current or older model, you would have heard the term GCI, which was the graduation and completion index, and you would get, a certain amount of points for a standard or advanced diploma. But then if a student got a GED, you would get a lesser amount of points, but you were still getting credit for it in the accountability and accreditation system. This new model is looking to more strictly focus on that 4-year rate, that on-time 4-year rate for students completing high school. So there's still more to be determined on exactly what that looks like, what that point breakdown might be. But that's another change for us to look at when we look at programming and helping our students, reach the starting line, is how I like to call it.
Which is, of course, going to be tied to funding.
Not sure. At this point, it certainly will be tied to more intense support from DOE in terms of helping to improve that number. Yep. So the next category, which is pretty vague, this has come into light over the recent years in our current accountability model with that CCCRI that I discussed, where we were really being held accountable for students being CTE completers, earning credentials, participating in work-based learning, service-based learning, those sorts of things, and they all had points tied to them as well. This new model, in some of the communications that have been put out, there are other areas that they are looking at to determine, again, that readiness level that will be used for accreditation, or sorry, not accreditation, the new model. I'm gonna have to train myself. Yes.
That muscle.
The school, the
Distinguished.
school performance and support network. I'm gonna retrain myself. But things again like how many students are passing AP courses or enrolled in AP courses, earning a B or higher. And you might be, if you are in 2 or 3 of those types of courses with a B, you're gonna get more points allotted than maybe a student that's in one course and got a C. So there's this whole kind of matrix of how this all plays out that we'll continue to have to get information on.
So it's based on the course grade, not the AP test.
The information we have now is what it says. Yeah, that's a really good point. Other things, looking at things like civics, passing the U.S. citizenship test has been a thought tossed out there that if you had students pass that, maybe let's say in their government class or as part of their senior year, that might add additional points to your overall score. things like the ASVAB and how students that are taking that, preparing to go into the military. So it's much more broad than just maybe what we've been used to in the past of SOL scores are everything. So more to be heard on that matter.
In the enrollment piece, would that account for students that are in the governor's program?
Right now, what I've seen is AP and dual enrollment courses only.
Really? It seems like it should include people in the governor's program.
And it very well could, and this is again one of the categories that is very broad and kind of very loose at the moment.
Right.
So certainly when we come back for another update, hopefully we have better information. These are just some of the areas they've talked about as being included. When it comes to the vote, really the thing that was approved was kind of that percentage breakdown at middle, high, and elementary. The rest of it is we're still awaiting guidance.
Mr. Overbaugh, are you referring to governor's school?
Governor's school, yeah.
Okay, that is all dual enrollment. So that's-
Okay, all right.
Okay,
I called the wrong name, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
I'm still
Well,
learning.
that's what you meant, and I thought, oh, I know the answer to that.
thanks for that help on that.
Just a quick question
Sure.
going back to the AP. Teachers have to be certified to teach an AP course. So what's the possibility of the state helping to fund that cost? I mean, I know it's not now, but something that I think needs to be
Sure.
looked at.
Thank you for bringing that up. All right, so just talking next steps, again, awaiting a lot of guidance, and that's probably number one in terms of what we are looking for and others across the state. So as that guidance comes out, we'll have a better picture of what this new model looks like, and we'll continue to communicate that. Again, looking for improved information on readiness and what that category will include and how those points will be calculated, the performance levels, weighting clarification, performance tasks clarification at certain grade levels, what those tasks are, who develops them, and how they're included, that graduation and completion component. And the bottom one to support all of this is how do we train and support our staff in understanding what it is that we're working towards. So again, hopefully that provides a high level overview of just how different this is going to be in terms of grading schools.
So SOL tests are not going to exist?
They will exist.
Oh, they will, okay.
Yep, that's that mastery.
That was that growth myth.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm with
It's the middle line.
The whole picture.
So as we move forward, this get more answers. It seems to me like this will help us develop questions that we need to take to our elected officials.
Sure.
And go down to Richmond and to the VSBA conferences.
Absolutely.
There'll be a lot of them, I'm sure.
Any other questions?
I just got a question on philosophy.
Okay.
I can walk here a little bit. So when you look at schools, you're in the new into this division, and each school has its own community, family orientation, the whole deal. Do you look at each school and see what potential it has to really achieve? Or, because I would hate that we would say, because this stuff's standard, right? That we're just going to teach to the standard. There might be a time where there's a school that should be with the student population and how they're doing, they should be really exploring really high. I'm hoping we're going to get down to that level where we're asking the very best of everybody, teacher, student.
And we just had
Central
a
office.
conversation today in our leadership academy about high expectation.
Okay.
And there's some work by a gentleman named John Hattie. It's called Visible Learning.
John Hattie?
And we can share some of that with you, but he's done a lot of research, and Dr. Hubert chime in, that talks about what are the things that have the most impact on schools and classrooms. And the number 2 factor is setting high expectations for students. So, Mr. Painter, I think to answer your question, I would like to believe with every ounce of my being that we have high expectations for students. We aren't accepting the middle we've always said that the SOLs are minimum standards. Are we okay with our kids just meeting a minimum standard, or do we want more for them? I would argue that when you talk to teachers, they all want more for them. So while they might meet the standard in this capacity to be able to say, yes, I taught that standard, are they doing things that also then go above and beyond that standard?
That is,
that
that
answering your
is, that is
question?
news that I love to hear. Because that's what we should be doing with the whole organization. Because we're getting to the point where we're making improvements. Well, we should be aiming for the start. Why not Page County? Right?
Absolutely, 100%. And while we might have made improvements to get across that bar, we're not satisfied with that, because if you still only have an 85% pass rate, that's still 15% of kids that didn't meet a minimum expectation. Are we okay with that?
No.
No, we're not okay with that.
And what's that cost as they grow up and leave the school system, right?
Right. What I do like about this is at least there's more being considered than just those standardized
Yes.
tests. Because if we look at things like the Yerkes-Stokes model, where like test and anxiety goes up, so kids might not, especially with SOLs, with all the pressures on this one test, we're not getting accurate information with that. So I do like that there's more being considered.
I think what makes us a little bit nervous at this point, and it'll come out in the long run, is what are those things, right?
Right,
Because I
right.
think when you look across the state, you also see the inequity of resources. And if Fairfax County can do things that we can do them, it just takes a different path for us. It's sometimes a more challenging path, because we have to go find those resources where they might already exist for a more affluent division that has a higher tax rate, right? Or tax income to them. So we want to be careful that if we're going to be measured on certain things, that we have the ability to make sure that those things can be done for our students, and that equity is there. And so there's a lot, Dr. Huber is right, there's a lot of questions. Some of them we don't know to ask yet, because we don't know where they're going. So it's going to unfold again as let's see where it goes, and then let's ask the right questions. And then how do we change and reallocate resources to meet those needs? I mean, I think a lot of them we're doing, we have work-based experiences, we have internships. We need to grow all of those programs, but we at least have them, right? We have those pieces here. How do we then make them more for kids so that we can get those particular benchmarks higher?
So one of the things I think in that vein of what you're talking, STEM methods, different practices can really move that along, right? And I know like Fairfax, they probably got specialists coming in and doing STEM. Our teachers got to sit there and try to do it. I think if we had good metrics, I understand you're a metrics guy, which I'm glad to hear. If you have good metrics, we might be able to say, hey, we're going to put this STEM and put a priority on it. We're going to help the teacher not only control the classroom and get the tests that she needs, but also we're going to put this extra thing in there that's going to boost our scores up and boost our understanding of the students. I think, I like what you're saying. I'm glad you're reading the book. I'm looking up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Sounds
His
like-
research is good, and there's a lot of positivity to it. And there's a lot of things to consider in that. People always say one of the factors that helps kids is decreased class size. Well, his research shows that doesn't have the impact that something like setting high expectations for kids can have. So those expectations get set from me down, and that was the conversation that we had today with our leaders. They have to set those expectations, and then we have to provide the support and the knowledge and the skills and the PD and all the things to make sure people can meet the expectations that we set. That then translates down to kids. Teachers, a principal to the teacher, teacher to the child.
And then how do you get it to the family structure, right?
And we have less control over that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't impact when we have that child in that classroom for those minutes during the day. We have, again, those high expectations. But how do we then support the child to meet those expectations?
Challenges, goals, competition.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Fox, Student Handbook and Code of Conduct.
Yeah, so I bring before you tonight for information for your review, the 2024-25 Student Handbook and Code of Conduct. This sheet outlines for you the changes and the updates, and you'll see them in the book in red. There's not a tremendous amount. In the past couple of years, we've had a tremendous amount of changes and updates. there's not a whole lot, of many of them are just sort of either coming up to code with state requirements or legal requirements, or just amending calendar dates or staff. So I'm not going to walk you through it because there's not a lot, again, of substantive change here. What I would ask you to do is to take a look at this, review the handbook, let me know if you have any questions, and then we'll bring it back to you for approval so that we can then upload it in our system. Parents back to school in Power School, they then will sign that they have read and reviewed the new handbook and updates. We can at any time make updates to it as we need to, so if something were to change, we can come back, I'll bring it back to you with those changes. You would then review and vote, and then we would re-upload it. Okay.
Thank you. You are up again, policy update?
Yes, so thank you. So as of July 1st, there's a new House Bill 253, which requires school boards to permit any student enrolled in a public elementary or secondary school in a local school division to submit oral comments during the public comment portion of a school board meeting. So tonight, what I'm bringing to you is a minor revision to our policy KD and BDDH, which is public participation at school board meetings. And what it just adds is language specific to students. So saying that any currently enrolled Page County Public School pre-K through 12 student can address the school board as any other citizen would. They're then going to be required to follow the same procedures for sign up, abide by the same restrictions in terms of expression that's applicable to any other citizen. So the KD and BDDH are regulations which outline all of that. They would apply to any student who would want to come and speak. So again, this is informational tonight. Please review it, take a look at it. We'll bring it back to you for approval, but this would then put us in compliance with that new state law that came into effect July 1st.
Thank you. Superintendent's update?
Yeah, so just a short update for you tonight, and I want to start a little bit late with it, but welcome to Dr. Huber. We're excited to have him on board. We've kept him busy, that's for sure, and he keeps coming back every day, so we figure that's a good sign. So, welcome, Dr. Huber. We're excited to have you and all the knowledge that you're bringing. I'm going to begin tonight with another piece of legislation that just requires some information being shared with you all. House Bill 168 requires the Department of Ed to create a resource document that supports and provides different services to homeless students. We have taken that document, we've uploaded it to our webpage, which we're required to do. Right now, it is housed under the Student Services page. We do have a separate homeless page, but we want to revamp that. It'll be housed under both of those pages. So just notifying you that that information is there. That's a link to the document. You can go on the webpage and look at it. It just outlines the various resources that might be helpful to homeless students. So available to our staff, available to our students, anyone who works with that population of students. Right now, Mr. Hopkins is serving as our homeless liaison because Ms. Owens is out. When she returns, she will then step back into the role of homeless liaison. And we do work with the Hope Project out of William and Mary and with the state. And just, go ahead, sorry.
I don't know the answer. How many homeless students do we have?
I know.
Oh, you're going to, all right.
So-
I'm a straight man.
I anticipated
All right.
your question.
You really, way to
My
go.
data folks.
We're working
So-
well here.
Here's a little bit of data for you. So to be considered homeless, and this is all based on Virginia code, a student is homeless if they live in an emergency shelter, they're living in a motel, a hotel, a campground, a car, a park, any other public place, a bus or a train station, or in an abandoned building. They can also be considered homeless if they're doubled up with relatives or friends due to the loss of housing or because of economic hardship. And then those conditions above, and if they're also considered a migratory child or a youth that's not accompanied by a parent or guardian. So what you see there is a total aggregate of all of those different situations for us over the last couple of years. The majority of our students are living under that second bullet of doubled up, but we do have students that are living in cars, that are living in shelters. And that you're seeing a little bit of fluctuation in that number. But right now, we're starting the school year with, as of last year, 66 students. Now, I also want to add a big asterisk to this. When students come and enroll with us, they have to identify as homeless. And then triggers a whole bunch of things that we have to do under the McKinney-Vento Act. If they don't self-identify and tell us, they don't get counted as homeless. We know that we have more than 66 students that are living in these conditions in our division. And so, 66 is the documented number, but, and those are the kids then that schools take under their wing and they try to provide all the resources they can. But if you all know, and I say this to you all, and I say it to anyone in the public, if you're homeless, it's okay. Let us know, because it does trigger a tremendous amount of other resources that we could potentially provide. And our schools do a very good job of being respectful of that, and treating that information carefully. So I just encourage people, if you're struggling right now, it's okay, let us help. There are provisions that we can do to help through McKinney-Vento. So just another update for you. We've talked about this a little bit, and we're actually going to be pushing this out and doing this year, so we're excited about this. We are going to be offering telehealth services at Lorraine Middle School this year. This is in partnership with Valley Health, and they are providing all of the technology, the medical instruments, and the personnel are covered through their grant that they were awarded from the USDA to address rural health challenges. So with parent consent, and again, part of the back to school paperwork and Empower School, there'll be a parent consent form there. We'll send out information to parents to explain the program and what it means. They give consent, and again, all of that's done through Power School. If their child gets sick at school, they can go. We've hired, and on your personnel packet tonight, you approved an LPN that will be housed at Page Middle, and her job will be to work with the student and connect them at school with a medical provider. Through telehealth services, they have some instruments that they can use to assess the student right then and there. The provider then can say, all right, this is what needs to happen, and then that can happen. So in theory, it's going to work really well for everyone, because we can now provide medical services to students while they're at school. We know there are going to be some bumps in the road, because it's our first time doing it as we work through it, but we're excited to at least say that we're going to be moving down this road at the start of the school year. The cost of the visit is dependent on insurance and or Medicaid coverage. All of that is handled through the telepresenter, the nurse. They'll work all of that through the registration process with Valley.
Quick question. Is it for just students or could staff?
It is for staff, and it can be students outside of Lorraine Middle as well. So we just have to, we're only going to do the consent form right now for Lorraine Middle, because that's the targeted population. But it can be, if, that there's something running through the house, we can bring them to Lorraine Middle School, and the parent can give consent at that time for them to be seen. And staff, yes, they can use those services as well.
I heard correctly, the LPN is going to be at Page Middle.
It's Lorraine.
It's Lorraine Middle.
What did I say?
I wrote down
Is
Page.
that why
Yeah.
you were looking at me funny?
Right. So it's Lorraine, all right.
Sorry,
Lorraine.
my apologies. Lorraine Middle School,
Okay.
I apologize.
All right.
Next time, feel free, reach out and touch me. I apologize, Lorraine Middle. So yes, that nurse will be housed at Lorraine Middle. All of the equipment is there, all of the telemed services will be there. And so they can address some of those conditions that are listed there. And again, they have, some of the medical equipment is there, and it's digital so that it can transfer the results directly to the medical provider. So
Nice.
we're excited about that. Valley Health is going to come in on Lorraine Middle's orientation day. They'll be available to answer parent questions, things like that. So we're excited that that is now underway at Lorraine Middle.
So what's why Lorraine Middle and not Page?
When the grant was written, it was written for Stanley, Lorraine Middle, and Page High. We have chosen Lorraine Middle because Ms. Thomas is an RN. And part of this is you had to have what's called a CLIA waiver, which means that the nurses that there can do certain tests, like a strep test, a COVID test, things like that. Because she has an RN, we could file that CLIA waiver because she's the only registered nurse we have. So that's why it's at Lorraine Middle. Our goal, our hope is that Valley Health can either extend their grant, get another one, and then we can push it out, because that CLIA waiver would then cover the division, not just that one school, and that's getting ready to be sent in for approval. We could then look to, we had hoped to start it at Stanley last year as well.
Okay.
And then we'll move it up to the high school. Valley Health, again, this is all dependent on whether they get the grant or whether we can work together. We want to put another nurse in the clinic, though. It can't all fall on our current nurse. It's just too much. The demands that they already have, and then on top of it, they've got to stop and then take a child to a private room and do, that would not work. So part of the agreement was that they would have to provide the funding for the personnel to have the other nurse there.
So will other schools be able to transport students to
We can,
use this?
yeah,
Okay.
and essentially it's, while it's housed at Lorraine Middle, it could
Right.
be any Page
Okay,
student
good.
as long as we have that parental consent.
Good, that's
in
good.
Page County
That's
student.
great, okay.
So, we hope to really expand it. I hope that Valley Health can get another grant and/or they've already gotten one extension for their grant. I don't know if they're going to be able to get another, but we're grateful for the partnership to be able to at least start it this year and see how it runs and whether they have the financial support to keep it going or are there grants that can keep it going. And then just want to invite everyone, tomorrow night, we will have at least 5 students who will now be graduating the class of 2024 in our summer graduation ceremony. So that's tomorrow night. That is at Page County High School. It's at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. So if anybody's available to join us there, we welcome you to help us celebrate those students and their achievements. That's it for my update this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Sechrist, approval of claims for payment.
Yes, good evening again, board. You have the claim certification. There are 2 different columns there for the 24th as well as the 11th. Since this is our only meeting for this month, I will go over the 24th, our most current with you, where we had total operating fund expenditures of $237,046.46. Capital Improvement Fund 2, $11,519. And food service expenditures of $8,072.37 for total expenditures of $256,637.83. You also have both list of claims and all of the check registers for the month. And if you have any questions, answer those.
I make a motion that we approve the claims for payment as presented by
Second.
A motion by Mr. Painter and a second by Mr. Overfelt to approve the claims for payment as presented.
Mr. Overfelt.
Yes.
Ms. Alger. Yes. Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes.
Ms. Ford.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Purchase orders over 10,000.
Yes, we have a few there for your consideration this evening as we continue to still start the school year and fiscal year. Several of those are just contract agreements. As you can see there, the Massillon Governor Schools there for this year, our payment to those folks, as well as things for our contracted services and special education, cleaning supplies for our custodial staff, lots of different contract services to get our year going. If you have questions on those, I'll do my best to answer those as well.
You go back to that. The Massachusetts Governor's School, is that our total payment for the year, or it is? Okay. Are we going to get any more positions, you think?
We have to talk with them because they have certain class sizes they have to maintain. So if they have seats open, we can certainly talk with them. And that's how we did it 2 years ago to get the extra 2 seats. Another division dropped down by 2, we picked them up. So it'll be on the first meeting that we have in October with them. We'll start talking about extra seats.
Yeah, I'd like to try and get some seats over there.
It'd be great if we can, yeah. And then we can then build that into our budget as we move forward.
Great, okay.
How does the charter house POs work? Is it by student that we have enrolled? Or?
Yes, we pay by student, and so this is just if we have to get to that amount, then it's based on how many kids.
So it might be more other POs. We gotta have.
Could be if it goes over this amount.
Or we could be under it.
Right,
Yeah,
it's like a do not
That's
exceed,
yes.
so that we can
Do not
pay
exceed.
against this
Gotcha.
PO monthly for our services that our students receive there.
So is that the same for the psych services and speech?
Yes, yes.
It's
So
just-
it might be under, or if we come back and are over and the threshold is over that amount and then over another 10,000, then we would come back with you all, to you all again with another one. But that's so that every single invoice we get, we don't have to pay each month. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is our quarterly monitoring in Shenandoah? Is that for HVAC or
It's
Air
air quality.
air quality?
Yes, sir.
We pay that, so we're 13,000 every quarter just to monitor the air down there?
No. That they conduct it quarterly, but that's the yearly.
We get,
Oh, okay.
we get lab results, so they come in, and I maintain, meaning I house those results. Mr. Williams looks at them as well.
Right.
And they'll go in and two things, they'll go in and do random locations.
Sure.
And then we can also reach out and say, we've had a concern in such and such a room that, it feels damp, or it feels this, or it feels that. And we go in, and they come in environmentally and make sure that we're able to say to our staff, this building is operational, air quality levels are safe. A lot to do with the age of the building.
Yeah, so we're looking for, mold, mixed, all those kind of. So that's the annual payment, but they still monitor quarterly. Okay, I'm clear on that now. Okay,
I make the motion to approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
second.
Motion by Ms. Alger and a second by Mr. Oberfeld to approve the purchase orders over 10,000.
Ms. Alger? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Mr. Oberfeld?
Yes,
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Johnson, PCPS panel of physicians.
Yes, once a year, we come to you with this request. As you know, VACOR is our insurance company. They also oversee our workers' compensation process. And so they identify if a staff member gets hurt on the job, the process would be the staff member, first and foremost, usually our school nurse will evaluate if it's serious to make sure, are we calling the squad or that kind of thing. We have an online reporting system where an employee has to report the specifics of the accident and the injury, and I get reports on that, and so does VACOR. But if an employee needs additional medical attention, they are required to go to one of these. We have one locally. We've got one in Harrisonburg, two in Harrisonburg, excuse me, and then we've got a virtual one as well. If it's significant enough, they can go to the emergency room. Obviously, we don't tell them they can't do that. But we use this at back to school. I actually have the employee manual with me because this goes in the employee manual. We go through this at the beginning of school. And I always say to employees, make sure you follow this. Because if you get hurt on the job and you don't go to the right place, I can't promise you that they're going to cover you through workers' comp. So we have to have your approval before we can post this.
And then our benefits specialist, Ms. Seeley, also goes through this with every new hire that is hired during the year as well. So if they're not here for the very beginning, they do hear this upon being hired.
I make the motion, we approve the panel of physicians.
second.
There's a motion by Ms. Alger, second by Mr. Oberfeld to approve the panel of physicians.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Mr. Oberfeld?
Yes,
Ms. Alger?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes. Dr. Fox, approval of authorization and signature.
Yeah, so I come back to you with this, and this would be tonight, you're approving for Ms. Seacrest, Dr. Huber, and Dr. Johnson to be able to have authorization to sign documents for the Virginia Department of Ed in my absence if needed. Ms. Gordon will sign the form if you approve, and we'll send it to the Department of Education. It's good through next June. We'll do this again next July.
Go ahead.
please, ladies first.
I make a motion to approve the authorization of signature in absence of the division superintendent as stated this evening.
Okay.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Ms. Sullivan Smoot and a second by Ms. Bryant to approve the authorization of signature.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Mr. Oberfeld?
Yes,
Ms. Alger?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes. Board member.
Start.
sure.
Well, welcome. Thank you. Yeah, good to have you. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. What do we call it? Retreat, or what do we call it?
You know, the board retreat.
A board retreat with all the people from CO and
schools.
Yeah, good, great.
Retreat is a fancy word for 3-hour meeting.
For working.
Who's complaining?
Hey, it's 4 or 5.
That's what the public to know.
It's not a retreat.
No,
Oh, yeah, definitely.
it's a work session. Right.
You're gonna work. We're putting you to work.
I'd like to say thanks to everyone who's worked diligently this summer to get things ready, and for all teachers and administrators and everybody getting ready to start the new school year. Keep doing the work you're doing, because it is paying off, and there's always room for improvement, and we're all on board with that. But just know we do appreciate it. And, every year is exciting. You never know what's going to be, so you take one day at a time. And you'll find as you get older, time sure does fly. And I've already been told that the summer, where did the summer go to, by one of our members. And I said, well, you know the old saying. He said, yeah, I'm getting older too, but summer sure goes fast. So I think you'll be ready. I don't think there's any doubt. It's exciting. Good luck to all the fall sports programs as they go start their season, and with practices and everything, and everybody just be safe and healthy.
So I'd like to welcome you as well, Dr. Huber. Thanks for joining a team. I think you'll find it a challenging place. Very, very rewarding as well, though, and we're not that hard to work with. But I'm glad to hear about our faculty status. I mean, that's really good news. I think we're gonna be in good. I'd like to see us get to the point where people are wanting to come to Page County because we have such high standards. We have such great place to teach and such great students, and we'll be dragging in people from other counties into our county. And I think we can do that. I really do. Lastly, I just wanted to congratulate our wonderful CFO on balancing the budget again. Thank you very much. We're very lucky to have you.
She likes to stay out of jail.
Me too.
I'll say welcome, and have everybody enjoy the rest of their summer. Coming fast.
Welcome, Dr. Johnson. Thank you for putting that parent version together for the emergency response. I think it's so important that you took the time to hear them, and hopefully that will decrease panic from parents. And we do live in a very unique time. So the better that we communicate with the parents and let them feel assured that we hear you, and putting this together, it's really nice, because then they can kind of manage, I can just keep, and I'm not going to text them. So I think this is a great plan. And I guess we're going to hit the ground running next month, and everybody I know has been busy all summer long, but thank you for what you've done. Enjoy the last little bit.
Thank you all. We're going to see each other tomorrow and then next week again. So thank you, everybody, for getting ready, and looking forward to another great school year.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Alger, and we're going to give this one to Irvefeld.
Mr.
Yes.
Ms. Allen. Mr. Boehner.
Yes.
Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan. Yes. Ms. Gordon.
Yes.
You are.